at these meetings is Rand and I are switching out who kind of does the beginning. And so part of that is because our two areas in academic affairs and Rand's area with Linda, wherever there she went, and Linda's area have really built bridges this past year and are working so closely together, and we're so proud of that Rand and I both wanted to be able to welcome you each time. I want to talk a little bit about the accomplishments that we've seen in this past year. And so first is that bridge that we have built between the Office of Workforce and Corporate Programs and between the Office of Academic Affairs. I really can't tell you how far that collaboration has come this year. And we are so proud of it, and we hope that you can see the benefits of that in a more streamlined, more easy process through the development of programs. New programs. We have had 3 credit programs and 1 non-credit. We've also developed the energy cluster. And that's really important because in the past, Lone Star has tended to focus on more small business and healthcare than large corporations. And bringing the energy cluster into the mix is really looking at the big companies that service our area. Third one, significant program modification. Several of our programs have gone through modification this past year. And that is significant because we're able to develop the programs to be better for our students when they go into the workforce. And so, very important thing. Building relationships. We've already talked about the relationship that workforce education and academic affairs have built, but we've also been working to build relationships with industry and with the workforce board, with the coordinating board. We had Gary Tomerlin here to really work with me and Linda and to find out about what is on the horizon for them. And other Gulf Coast and Texas colleges. When I first got here, one of the things I kind of noticed is that we didn't tend to work with a lot of the other colleges around us. And so I think we're working to build those bridges also with our other colleges. Fifth, program resource development. When you develop a program, it's not just about developing the program, you've got to have the resources for it. And so really looking at equipment and labs and having the resources for those, the financial resources to do those, making sure we get the word out to the public about what we're doing. Having advisory council members, you know advisory council members are so important. They're at the buy-in, they're like our stakeholders. And they're the people that are going to hire the students. And grant partnerships. Just in the year I've been here, I think we have seen more and more emphasis on grants and what we can do with grants, and I think that's going to continue, and I think there's a lot of opportunities there. And then in the past year, Perkins, which was a workforce grant, actually moved from academic affairs over to Linda Head's area, and it just made more sense for Perkins to be in workforce education. And so we have tried to make some changes organizationally that really benefit workforce education. The last thing is the Talent Acquisition Center. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but it's about helping our students find jobs. Once they finish, once they graduate, once they finish with us, how do we help them find jobs? And so, I think, do I have another slide? Okay, that is all I have, and I'm going to turn it over to Linda, and you will see me back for Talent Acquisition Center a little bit later.
Sherry, and coming out of what used to be Office Administration, then POF, now Administrative Services, was one of the first departments to really buy into the idea of developing stackable credentials. And the department that you were with started with stackable credentials a long time ago. And we're continuing that good work, and you were one of those modification areas. And a lot of you in the room were also helping with that. And then continuing education, Robin and your team here, trying to decide what, as we're developing programs, is a continuing education short fast-track certificate. There was actually legislatures that came together this year that decided that that was something important enough to put in a bill through the state, Senate, and House, that we have short-term fast-track certificates, that the state develop more of those. And everybody else that has been helping with things. As Rebecca goes into the actual process for how we develop programs, any of those, how many of you are not teaching a WECM course but are teaching an ACGM course or teaching developmental studies that would lead into, or something else, where workforce programs are not just non-credit certificates, credit certificates, or associate applied science degrees. Everybody's here because really we want people to get jobs. So through the department, our Office of Workforce Education, we want us all to be thinking about how does our piece of the pie fit into helping citizens of the community get a job that they feel good about and where they can earn a livable wage for themselves and their families. Sometimes you have to go to a four-year institution and get an engineering degree to get that great job. Sometimes you have to keep going to University of Texas and get that PhD to become a college president. So you never know what the end educational piece is to get you to that perfect, great job. But we're all a piece of that. And so the other thing we're trying to do by having our departments work more closely together and by having us work more closely with the colleges and everybody at the colleges is so that we have a mindset of helping people find where they are today and where do they want to end up. What's their real goal? But my department's goal is, and the real work of Workforce Council and all the people that represent Workforce Council, we have 46 members on Workforce Council, is what programs do we put together that will help people find a job, where there are jobs, where there really are jobs. So please don't be offended along the way if we go, we've researched that, and yes, Rebecca Riley is a very creative, smart woman. And I love having her as my co-chair. But sometimes this group has to say to Rebecca Riley, yeah, that sounded like a great idea, but we did our research, and maybe there's one job every 5 years. And they have to say it to me, and they have to say it to Dr. Pearson, and they have to say it to Dr. Carpenter. Now, Dr. Carpenter might want to go ahead and do it anyway, and that's his prerogative. But the process that we're talking to you about today is really keeping that in mind. Where are the jobs? Our department is multifaceted, and we don't want to get you all wound up in all the different parts of our department. But the reason we have this slide is because we want you to sort of separate what we're really spending the meat of our time on today, which is the process for developing programs. But I also wanted to spend a couple minutes letting you know about the other pieces of our department. And Deborah Rockefeller wants to do the same about Carrie's department. The Talent Acquisition Center, that's new. We probably could just call it a job placement center. But what differentiates what we're doing from what you're already doing in career services areas in the colleges is we're trying to build that real bridge between Lone Star and the employer. And it is an offshoot of what's happening in corporate college. This morning, I left a meeting where we had a vice president of National Oil Fargo, we had a vice president of Extreme Drilling, we had a vice president of International Association of Drilling Contractors, and we had the global technical training manager of FMC Technologies at a meeting and a lunch, with Texas Workforce Commission, because we were out there trying to get money from Texas Workforce Commission from their economic development initiatives and programs to come to Lone Star. And 5 years ago, I certainly didn't have relationships with all those folks, but we now have relationships with those folks. And those same folks are hiring our students. NOV, they send recruiters to us every few weeks in different areas depending on their need. They always send representatives to our focus groups. They're donating equipment. FMC is donating $500,000 in equipment for the new building for energy and manufacturing. They're bringing lots of things here. So the Talent Acquisition Center is more about the connection of knowing the corporate culture at these larger employers. Dr. Pearson just returned from a meeting at a Chamber of Commerce. System office is never going to know the relationships of all the multitude of businesses in your service area. We're not here. We're not working here. We might live here, but we're not working here. A lot of that still comes from the college, and we need your help in us understanding all the businesses in your area. But we do know the corporate culture of the larger businesses. And we're trying to help our students be better prepared for both. Because it is different. Our students have to make a choice. Do they want to go work for an FMC Technologies where there's a certain way to dress, a certain way to look, a certain way to kind of cut your hair and wear or not wear jewelry and all that sort of thing? Or do they maybe want a little more freedom and work for one of the smaller businesses that maybe it's a little bit different? It's kind of the difference between working for Microsoft back in the day when Microsoft used to put sand in some of the programmers' offices and let them lay on the ground and program. They didn't care as long as they were really intelligent and could get the job done. Well, probably in FMC Technologies, they don't have sand in anybody's office, and you can't be overly creative in how you look and dress. It's just a reality. The company's not going to change for our students. Our students have to make decisions, and we have to help guide them to the place that's going to be the best fit for them. So that's what that's about. Corporate college, I think you all know, is run as a profit center. It doesn't make a whole lot of profit, and profit is a four-letter word in a nonprofit institution. The real goal, and the reason Dr. Carpenter put together a corporate college 5 years ago, was to build a different relationship with our large employers so that they would donate money, they would hire our students, they would know all the good work that the colleges are doing. Because 5 years ago, it was sort of pick and choose. The large employers really didn't know what we did, and they really thought we were a place where 18-year-olds started their 4-year degree. Didn't know about all of our great workforce programs. Or know that we have, our average age is 26 or 27 years old. Didn't know that. Didn't know that we have 78,000 credit students. Didn't know that we have 5,300 employees. Didn't know that University Park is 1.5 million square feet of space, and it's about half of the total space of our system, and didn't know the quality of our faculty. So corporate college is also doing that and selling everything that you do every day. But they're also customizing training in the core areas where we have technical skills trade. The niche of corporate college is the skilled trades. So you hear a lot about energy and manufacturing because that was a niche that no one else was filling in Houston. And corporate college runs the conference center in the Woodlands and the one at University Park. And they're set up as a contract. And it's kind of interesting. The one in the Woodlands is still primarily for employees' use and for meetings for employees. The one at University Park is primarily for rental and have large events in the West Dining of University Park. Continuing education. Continuing education is made up of both workforce certificate programs, about 25 of them, is that correct, Robin? And also community education. Continuing education still handles the registration and advising for and setup of the instruction for summer youth camps and for the Academy for Lifelong Learning. and for English as a second language as far as the instruction goes. And I think this campus had one of the largest, if not the largest, Discovery College this year, didn't it? Lots of kids like coming here. And really you have to remember the real point of starting Discovery College and starting an Academy for Lifelong Learning was to get families to your campus. Families that might not come here. So again, it's not, continuing ed certainly isn't a money maker, and people that talk about money associated with education, it's kind of silly. But I hear that in the background. Continuing education is another set of courses that provide service to the community because we are a fully comprehensive community college. So that's why they exist, is to meet the needs of some of the other community members. Texas Workforce Grants, we do facilitate about $2 million a year in grants, maybe even more than that. And then also we will be reviewing the workforce programs, credit and non-credit this year. But we're really here to talk about workforce education and the work of the Workforce Council. How many of you here today are on Workforce Council? Marie, I know you are. Thank you for what you do. It's a council that meets every month. We're following a process to create new, but primarily to make major modifications to credit and non-credit programs. But we also have sitting there the Associate Vice Chancellor for Marketing, the Executive Director for Grants, of course, Deborah Rockefeller for the Office of Academic Affairs, and co-chair with Rebecca Riley, Vice President of Instruction. So we are trying to make sure that our system office marketing pays attention to workforce education, that our grants department pays attention to workforce education, and that we're getting more bang for the buck. Oh, and also the foundation. So that we also meet with the CFO, Cindy Gillum, to make sure that she knows the huge equipment needs and software needs that are needed in workforce education.
Hello, everyone. I think most of you know me, but I'm Deborah Rockefeller. I'm the Executive Director for Academic Support, which is a portion of Academic Affairs. And what you see up here is an abbreviated organizational chart for Academic Affairs. It includes LSC Online, which did not really reorg too much in the spring when we did all of that work. And International Programs and Studies is still pretty much the same with NITI, if you know NITI. The three new areas, and they're substantially new. Educational Partnerships is a new department in Academic Affairs, and it's being led by a brand new executive director, fresh from the University of North Texas. Her name is Lynette O'Keefe, if you want her name. She's going to be a real joy to work with. And College Preparation Programs is the executive director, Nadia Dazarenko. I sometimes struggle with her last name, but she's a joy too. Those of you who know her, I know the CE folks know her. She has all of the college preparation programs. And then my area is academic support. I have 3 working groups in my area. Many of you know Gail Piccolo, who has health occupations. Her work is going to be continuing. She does a great job shepherding clinical agreements, the applications for students. It's a terrific, challenging job, but she does a super job doing it. I can't seem to move away from compliance, which is SACS. Many of you know me as the SACS lady, and that's going to remain in my area. Compliance and instructional initiatives. We work to make sure that we stay in compliance with anything from the federal level, SACS, the accrediting bodies, coordinating board, all those different compliance issues. So we want to encourage innovation and new program development, but at the same time, we're the office that makes sure that we stay in alignment with all these other bodies and their expectations. And then curriculum development. In the reorganization, we created 3 new staff positions to work directly with the curriculum teams. Curriculum teams, the facilitators, the chairs no longer have to enter curriculum proposals into CurriculumNet. That's their role. Go ahead and applaud if you would. Pat McDougall, Courtney Powell, and Keisha Dowling. Those three are kind of new positions. And Mary Lou and Susie are both also on that reporting line. Susie works directly with CE, and I think she's been doing a great job helping to support your program development. And so it's all been integrated. We shepherd program development, continuing education, and credit, so it's an integrated work team. I think they've been doing a great job. And we're really focusing on supporting the work that the curriculum teams do and making sure that we track everything and things get pushed through effectively.
All right, Workforce Council. I'm going to have our group stand up and introduce themselves and tell you what their role is in terms of workforce education so that you can get a feel with Workforce Council as to who's really doing the hard stuff. I'll first introduce Cheryl Smith. Cheryl's the Director for Workforce Education. Cheryl, do you want to say hello?
Hello. As Amy said, I'm the Director of Workforce Education, and I look forward to working with all of you as we go through the process of developing new workforce programs. It's a team effort that we just want everybody to be engaged and involved. We want you to be able to give us ideas of things that you think would be feasible for us to develop programs, so at the end of the day, our students will be able to get jobs.
Do you want to introduce your team?
And my team includes Deborah Juries. She is going to be over program evaluation that has come under the Office of Workforce Education and Workforce Education Corporate Partnerships, and we'll talk more about that shortly. Christina Todd is in our department, and she is working with the new workforce program development process. She helps us out from beginning to probably step 7 or 8 when it goes over to academic affairs. That's from taking requests, doing the labor market, research, organizing the focus groups and PCAPs. And then there's Amanda Benavides. She's our staff assistant. We could not do without Amanda. So she helps us keep everything running and in order. And then we have Mary Beth, and she is on fall teaching release to work with us. Mary Beth, you can tell us a little bit about what you do.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Kurdatsky. I'm a professor over at Montgomery College in Business Administration. And this semester I am on leave working with Linda and Cheryl Smith and her team, trying to help move us forward with the stackable certificates and other curriculum issues. I think.
And last semester, we had Rami Shafi from North Harris help us for a semester, and he helped us develop what is now the Talent Acquisition Center. So we're happy to have a faculty perspective. She hits me on the back of the head often. Rebecca was already doing that, and to remind us that when you sit in the Woodlands or sit at UP, sometimes you forget what life is like. Don't schedule meetings on August 26th, or don't schedule them on December 15th, and have you thought about this, have you thought about that, and like, no, you know how soon you forget. It doesn't matter how long you've worked at a campus, once you get in that closed space with no windows, and you know, you get locked in by a vice chancellor and not let out of your office, right, Deborah? You sort of forget. It's so fun to come see students and go, oh, that's a student. We read about them. We're writing policies about them. So that's how we agree with us. Did you get a handout on the workforce mission and purpose? So you should have that with you. We discussed that already. We have our meeting scheduled for our curriculum team meetings. Please participate in those. They're really important this year. Last year we brought together faculty to just be able to talk about the kinds of things that we're doing from the system office and hear from faculty, what are your needs at the campuses, so that we're sure we're paying attention to your needs, not just pretending we know. And it seemed really neat to get folks together from other campuses, and it was interesting to see when you bring together clusters of related curriculum teams to see John Burns sit there, who is faculty at Tomball, go, oh, I I didn't know we had a facilities management program at Kingwood. Or for Ruben Howard, who is logistics management at Sci Fair, to go, oh, you're right, there is somewhat of a common core across management programs. Maybe we should all offer the same technical writing class, or the same business principles class, or the same something. It makes it easier for students, and as a student is sitting in their first semester trying to figure out what in the world they want to do with the rest of their life, they're taking some common courses that they won't lose credit after they make their decision to whatever their specialty area is going to be. So it's been really fun. So this year, we have some real work to be done, some of it driven by the coordinating board, some of it driven by business and industry and what their needs are. And we're having to work more quickly than we ever have before in making decisions. So the cross-pollination of different faculty from different curriculum teams and campuses seems to be real healthy. And we had our first meeting last Friday with Computer Information Technology and Visual Comm. It went really well. We got really great input. It wasn't always positive input. We need to hear the real skinny. We need to know what we need to do to make things better and make it really work. So that's why we're doing that. The membership is one of your handouts. We have a real solid membership. We really need members to be there. We need members to participate. We need members to vote. We need to get your input. We've tried to set it up via teleconference. I used to teach in CIT. I'm big on using technology when you can. Everyone can't get everywhere, and we figured out last year the system would spend $28,000 a year just on mileage for everyone at Workforce Council to go to every meeting. So we decided to try teleconferencing. And see, it's a little bit awkward, and you can't see everyone really clearly, but it works some of the time. We really don't, we would like people to come at least once a year to meet with people in person, because you still need that in-person relationship. But I know your president has made sure that we have teleconferencing available, and we're all working really hard with OTS to make sure that that's a good option for meetings. Plus it takes about a half a day. By the time you drive somewhere, sit in a 2-hour meeting and drive back, that's a lot of time. And then we've developed this infamous bubble chart. And Rebecca Riley, and I think your designs in print have done a fabulous job of helping us make this more understandable. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
So those of you who have been involved in Workforce Council were already familiar with the bubble chart, the infamous bubble chart, but we've tried to simplify it a little bit. It used to have an outer circle or outer ring of circles and an inner ring of circles, and the outer ring of circles was new program development, and the inner ring of circles was program modification. And after about a year or two of working at this, we all realized, duh, it's about the same thing, basically, those two different processes. So we simplified it and color-coded it to sort of separate out the major pieces of the process. So I think if you go to the next slide, you have, now click again. There we go. If you look up at step one is the very first step, program requests, and those requests can come from anywhere. Sometimes industry approaches you and says, you know, we really don't have enough employees or enough workers in whatever. Ophthalmic assisting is the one that happened most recently with us. So any faculty, administrator, anybody can make a suggestion for a program request, and so that comes from a campus, it comes to the team, and the team begins to do some research. So the turquoise colored bubbles are the research phase of program development or program modification. And so it involves, first of all, just some general labor market analysis, and then once that is done, and of course that's done using Bureau of Labor Statistics as well as the burning glass data, which can drill down into a great deal of detail on job titles and education levels and so forth. And once that part is done, there's the little triangle there between the next two, the bubble 2 and bubble 3, indicates that we've looked at that research and said, yep, we think there's enough here to keep going forward. Let's keep moving forward and put energy into this, or not. And if we say yes, let's go forward, then there's a focus group with industry members to sort of validate what our labor market data has told us. So we've gotten all the statistics, but it's all on paper. And then the industry folks come into a room and say, yes, this is right, or well, you perhaps misinterpreted this, let's think of this a little bit differently. They help us flesh out that initial labor market data.
Can I add something to the
You bet.
And at the focus group level, we don't necessarily have the person closest to the job yet. We might have an HR director, a staffing agency, or a higher level manager. We're trying to get a general understanding of the occupational area. We don't care yet whether someone that works in a sleep center needs to know how to use this machine or connect that or connect that. We don't need to know that yet. We're just trying to validate the data and make sure there really are jobs, we really understand what the jobs are, and we know what the real job titles are, so that this team can go and get more data based on those job titles.
Thanks. At that point, though, we do have enough information once those focus groups are done to make some recommendations about feasibility. And so again, there's a decision point to move forward with more detailed research or not. If we say yes, then we go to a little bit more detailed level of focus groups with industry again. And as Linda said, the first focus group is high level job titles. Did our interpretation of the labor data tell us, did we understand it properly for our local labor market and so forth? At this point, we're looking for more detail. What are the job competencies that are really needed that go along with the jobs that we have found? So that's the research phase. If you go to I think the next slide is, shows the next step. If you click again. At that point, we develop a business plan and a proposal. And that business plan and proposal, at that point, we know, for example, whether or not we're going for a certificate program, an associate's degree, how those certificates might build onto each other for an associate's degree. We don't necessarily know the curriculum course by course at that point, but we have a proposal that we take forward to EC and ask them to support the program, vote yes or no for implementing the program. So we know a cost analysis at that point. We have some idea of equipment costs, facilities costs, staffing costs, and so forth. And again, there's a vote, only this time it's EC. And EC says thumbs up or thumbs down based on the strength of the proposal and the data that are presented. And if EC says thumbs up, then we go into implementation phase. And I think that's another slide.
Was that something to add?
Could I say something first before it goes to Deborah? Before we get to this point, all along the way, curriculum teams are supposed to be attending these meetings. The faculty and the deans are supposed to be there, and the advisory committees are supposed to be invited. So we really need input and participation. And this group is adding extra people, in addition to the advisory councils, that we hope you will take and add to your advisory councils. They're not coming just to come to a meeting and go home. We're bringing in other employers that they have researched through various methods that are hiring people from this program, whether it's a current program or a new program. So please, at these meetings, talk to the employers and get to know them. They're there for you. They're not there for us. I could bring in Patty Harrell and we could sell training to them, but that's not what they're there for, and they certainly would never come back if we did that. They are there for you. So get to know them, talk to them, stay afterwards, leave some extra time so that you can get to know them afterwards and schmooze them and get them on your advisory councils, please. And also, watch the process and read the documents, because we're developing the learning outcomes for your courses through this process. So up to this point, if it's a brand new program, we're developing learning outcomes. Robin sits on the WECM Leadership Group in Austin. They might not even know about a polysomnography program or what it is, and that's not even on their radar. So what we're developing are new courses to go into the WECM. So we need you to ask questions outside of the meetings and make sure, for your clarification, as we're writing learning outcomes, that you're getting in course descriptions and deciding, is it a 3-hour course, a 4-hour course, is it going to meet 48 hours a semester, or 64, or 96, or what is it? We need you to be thinking about that along the way, because we're not making those decisions. You are. So please ask those questions. And then what we're going to hand you, whether it's a new program or a major modification, are a list of competencies that you can either add to your current classes or create new. And you know you can add learning outcomes to your current classes. We just somehow got away from that over the years. I'm not sure why. We take what's in the WECM, we might add it individually at a campus or by instructor into a syllabus, but we don't officially add it into the course inventory for Lone Star to that course. We should do that. Because you want to know that if the course is taught here, or at Cypher or Montgomery, if it's taught by full-time, part-time, that everybody's covering the same learning outcomes. You can create templates of syllabi all day long, but we don't have system-wide syllabi. So the competencies, the learning outcomes, you want to ensure that they're the same all over the system. I was just swapping, I was going to say swap and spit. I was just swapping stories with Dr. Pearson about teaching the Humpty class. She's already been teaching it, and I'm a newbie, and I start next week. And I want to know what's working, what's not working for her, and we can spend the time doing that. But hopefully, those learning outcomes for that student success course are the same, and they've been built in, and there's enough meat to the learning outcomes that whether I'm teaching it, Dr. Pearson's teaching it, whomever's teaching it, that we're teaching the same stuff. And part of that comes from learning outcomes. And the last piece that's coming from that competency list that we're developing up through these phases, we're going to give you a crosswalk of where we see where the competencies are or are not in your current program. So we had HR directors in 2 weeks ago to talk about a new training and development HR recruiter something in management. And we have a certificate in HR, but not a full necessarily program, don't know. So we will take those competencies as we go through the modified PCAL and crosswalk it to see where we see. The two departments will work together on that and give you recommendations on where we see there's a gap. Missing course, missing learning outcome, something.
And we'll work with you and whomever's kind of shepherding the new program to make sure that it also includes all of the required general education components. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to come today. The new core is being developed right now as we speak. You folks in workforce can't just sit back and go, oh, that's their responsibility, it's going to affect them. This affects you in that those 15 hours of general education in your program must come from the core. So if there's a particular course or courses that you are accustomed or have an idea for having in your program, you better get to those curriculum teams right now, today. It's not too late, but you get to them today. If there's a math course that you've always dreamed of having and it wasn't available, talk to them. Maybe it's English. This is the time right here, right now, to make sure you have what you need and that it fits your program.
And she's not going to say it, but I'll say it. So what she's really saying is technical math, technical writing, interpersonal communication, Spanish, If there are things that you know employers want in your programs for a particular reason, and you want to be able to use that as your math, or use that as your English, use that as your humanities, or use that as your behavioral science, be sure it's in the portal. Otherwise, you don't really have a choice.
Well, the rest of this, the gray part is really program implementation, the curriculum process, curriculum development, the curriculum process for approval, whether it's a new program or just a modification. And then obviously the preparation that has to occur on a campus in terms of facilities, equipment, staffing, and so forth. And the program begins, and then of course, once the program begins, it immediately begins to be evaluated for continuous improvement. And that's ongoing whether the program is new or not, but we always continue that evaluation process. And we're going to talk about annual report cards and program review in a minute, I think.
Remind them that new programs go to the board.
New programs, brand new programs, still go to the coordinating board and to our board for approval. That's right. Their EC has a vote up and a vote down, but also our board of trustees votes up or down on new programs as well. And we probably need to place that somewhere on the bubble chart. We haven't put that in the proper place there. So let's see, I don't know if there's another slide on this or not. That's it. Yeah, program evaluation. What's missing from the broken up parts is what Linda alluded to a moment before. In the diagram that you have, I believe there's a ribbon on the inside of the group of circles or the bubbles that say curriculum teams. And when I'm using the pronoun we through all of this, we means faculty working in these programs are involved in all of this. Although we're so fortunate now to have a research team who does some of the legwork on the labor market research and helps us put together those focus groups and facilitates and conducts those focus groups. It's, we've got a great support structure now for those things, but none of it makes a bit of difference unless the faculty are not involved in the creation and modification of these programs. It really comes from you and your partnerships with industry and industry talking to you in terms of our guidance on these things.
As I said earlier, workforce program review is moved to our department, and as we go through this process, we have come up with 6 guiding principles. And the first one is we value faculty and staff of every program. We support a culture of continuous improvement and have the institutional courage to make decisions. ORI is our data source. Credit and non-credit workforce offerings must exist to support employers with job openings from persons with professional development needs. Curriculum must be relevant and prepare students for job openings in their program of study. Data should be reported by the college and by the system as a whole. And those are our guiding principles as we are going through the workforce program evaluation process. Can you go to the next slide? So with that being said, in the past there were probably about 6 reports floating around. And what we decided to do is condense it to 2 reports. We want to make it simple and easy for you to understand. The first report is our annual report card. That's going to be a report that is given out in the spring. We had a task force that came together to give us input on what information you wanted on the annual report card. And this report card is quantitative. It's strictly data. It's numbers. And we came up with about 17, 18 data elements that your colleague said that would be very good information for them to have. So this is our pilot program. This is our first year around, and like we said, it's all about continuous improvement. As you see these reports, let us know if you want to make some changes, if you need more, or if you need less. The second report is going to be our program review, and it's going to be on a 4-year cycle for the programs, and this report will be given out in the fall. So this will be more of a qualitative report. And as you look at these reports, and all we're asking you to do is ask yourself, does your program need more marketing? What does it need? How does it need to change? And that's what we want you to do with this information. And as you see that, you come back to our department and we can help you with that, with your marketing needs, with your modifications of trying to make your curriculum more relevant to today, for today.
How many of you have returning veterans in your classes? Many of us. They're coming back in greater and greater numbers. They have, like many of our students, skills and experiences that may translate quite nicely to some academic credit. We have a real sense of urgency in our office to start talking about and starting to build and shepherd an expanded PLA program, not just for veterans, but really for all students. I don't know if you've been watching the Chronicle of Higher Education or listening to some of the information coming from the federal government, but they are as interested in student progression and student completion as we are in Austin and as we are here. And PLA is a strategy to do that. We need to get far more organized in our awarding of PLA so that we're more consistent and so that we have greater options for all students, but especially veterans. I think you're going to be seeing a lot more talk about that in the coming months, just giving you a heads up. But I think it's a real important strategy for our completion agenda and just student success in general. The other thing is that, and I think many of you know that, but I want to stress this. One of the pragmatic reasons that we're having so many conversations about stackable credentials, in other words, having certificates with courses that tie to the degree, are veterans, the financial aid. I see some of you nodding your heads so you know where I'm going. If a veteran student takes a class and a course, a certificate program that's not in the degree, there are times when they may actually have to pay back the money because they can't be awarded financial aid for a course that is not part of the degree program. So it's especially important for our returning veterans that we have credentialing programs, certificate programs that are truly stackable. It benefits all students, it's good for all students. It really ties nicely to our student success and completion agenda and what's really best for all students, but it is especially important for veterans.
I know it's very dense. Oh, I said it all? Oh, sorry, I talked too much. Also on this veterans slide, something that I had not written about, we hadn't talked about, is the idea of industry certification. 20 years ago, when did CompTIA come up with A+, and when did Microsoft come up with
15 years ago. 15, 20 years ago.
when? At least 20 years. So in computer technology, the idea of industry certification has been around for a long time, longer than some of our children's ages. So why did they do that? I mean, why did we decide to adopt certification in IT programs? And why do we have a Cisco networking? I think the first one was Novell here at Kingwood. Novell networking. Why did we do that? Because it gave our students something else, another credential to add to their resume when they applied for a job. And also, that organization created competencies that we could use as instructors to help us make sure we were teaching what students needed to get a job. Because when you look at the WECM, no offense, Robin, but when you look at the WECM, you know, you might have 4 or 5 learning outcomes for an 80 contact hour course. So that's a guideline. That is just a guideline. To get into the specifics, we're teaching what we think is important based on the book we choose, based on our background, based on other things. There are other national certifications that are starting to come out. Some have been out for a number of years, like project management and the PMI certification. It's very valued in business and industry. The problem with some of these certifications, and the reason why we can't just adopt them, is because, like the CPA, you have to have a number of years in a job before you can really sit for the final exam. But the idea of looking at industry certifications we're recommending is a good thing based on the data we're pulling. It's another credential a student can get. So please consider those. And as you're working on your curriculum, you're developing your courses. And please consider that as you're looking at faculty credentials and things under the preferred but not required, that you're hiring people that bring to you some other skill sets, that certifications are just becoming the way of the country. Again, sitting in the meeting this morning with driller contractors and manufacturers, they don't have any that they put in a job description right now. Baker Hughes is one of the first companies in Houston that is going to put on their job descriptions for a machine operator, CNC or manual, that preferred is this MIMS certification, which is for machinists that comes out of an organization in Washington, D.C. Since Baker Hughes is doing it, I'm sure at some point that it is a start of the fact that MIMS is going to start to be a preferred and one day are required by business and industry. So just need to keep your eye on that and be watching those certifications. We're not going to chase every certification, and there are lots of agencies and associations that say that they are the certification agency because they want to sell it and they want to make money from it, and they have this great credential and everybody needs it, and our job isn't to go sell it to employers nor required of our students if we don't see the value in it, and employers don't see the value in it. But don't turn your mind to it, because we think nothing of Cisco CNA and CCNP. We think nothing of Net Plus and A Plus. The Geek Squad at Best Buy all probably have A Plus as a minimum certification. Where 20 years ago, it was like, oh, who's CompTIA? And why are they starting the certification? And what in the world is A Plus? And we knew it had a little bit of hardware and a little bit of DOS. And do they have to know all 80 DOS commands? Or I don't even know if half of the room even remember what DOS was. But all 80 DOS commands? Or do they just have to know a few DOS commands and some of the hardware? Now you just buy a new computer. You don't even, you don't change circuits on a motherboard and all that anymore. But A+ certification is still valid. Sherry, I'm home too. But keep that in the back of your minds. Don't just kind of dismiss industry certification. And sometimes we're going to have to have maybe the certification in our upper level courses, and we hire adjunct to teach those things. If we decide that certification is something that we value in some program, sometimes it's going to be in the lower level courses. It depends on what it is. But we need to pay attention to it. And then on the talent acquisition services, we did talk about that. Carrie was going to reinforce the fact that we are trying to do that. On September 25th, I'm holding a meeting because we didn't hire our system program manager in that area yet. Pulling together any of the workforce advisors or career counselors. I sent the note out to the vice presidents of student services and vice presidents of instruction to be sure we had the right people participating in that meeting. We're trying to pull together the group because system office wants to complement what's happening at the campuses. Campuses are working directly with students. My mom was a career counselor in high school. She retired, that was her last job. She spent a lot of time helping students decide where they want to go to college, what they want to major in, all that sort of thing. The Talent Acquisition Services Department and the system office isn't working with students to help them make their career decisions and help advise them into what programs of study they want to go into. They're there on the other end to complement, and of course there's a gray area, there always is, of overlap. That gray area is teaching how to write a resume, how to apply in an online world, how to interview in a world where a lot of 20-year-olds, my 20-year-olds, I'll sit and kind of say, can you look at my face instead of looking down? Can you look at me and make eye contact? Can you speak a little slower? Can you articulate that a little better? And you know, we've all been in interviews with a shy, analytical person who isn't great at being verbally communicative. Can you explain a little more? You have to sell yourself. You have 1 hour, maybe 30 minutes to sell yourself in this interview. You have to talk. You might be the most brilliant person in the world, but if you can't explain that to an employer, you're out of it. We want to help with that too. And trying to figure out, you know, what do we already have? What do we need to complement? And where can software help? I just found out a few weeks ago about Perfect Interview. Didn't even know such a thing existed. Didn't know that Montgomery had a license for it. Didn't know that a student could sit in front of a computer with a camera and you could pre-choose the interview questions and even kind of pre-choose who interviews them and have somebody review that and give input into that. I didn't know that. The folks in this Talent Acquisition Council, whoever it ends up being, will help look at interviewing software, resume writing software, things that are free, things that are inexpensive, things that we can all use to help students prepare for interviews. And then the workforce curriculum teams. We've set up these meetings to come to the system office, in a group, to talk about the annual report card, to talk about getting our associate applied science degrees to 60 hours, to keep in the 60-hour maximum in the back of our minds as we're creating new programs, to talk about stackable credentials and where it's appropriate and where it's not, to talk about the workforce program process a little bit, to talk about anything you want to talk about. We want to hear from faculty where you need some help. Eric Clark, Elizabeth Chapman, Rebecca Riley, Felicia Moore Davis, a bunch of us, I remember being in a phone conference as deans and what we used to call program coordinators, which are now department chairs, talking about the lack of program-specific marketing from the system office. That was probably in 1902. And in 2013, I'm hearing the same thing. And it's not that Laura Morris doesn't care about program-specific marketing. It's that she's brought into all kinds of stuff, and we need to bring that message and let her know, you know, as we're developing programs, these are the programs we're developing, or these are the programs, facilities management. If we're going to revise a program, we need some oomph, not just from Kingwood, but we need some big oomph. So it goes across Houston that Lone Star has an interior design program. Lone Star has a dental hygiene program. Lone Star has this program. Because there are now no Lone Star. Laura and her team have done such a phenomenal job in letting the world know we are here. They know we're here. Now it's probably time to drill down a little bit. So we want to hear from you, whoever participates. And those of you that aren't faculty and won't be at those meetings, we want to hear from you as well. We need to know where you need help and support that we can help with. And we can bring things to college presidents in another way. Dr. Pearson can go beat her head against the chancellor's office door and say, pay attention to me. We can help too. You never do that?
It just doesn't work very well.
Well, we can help too. And we can be on the other door. And if we're both beating at the same time, then you're getting more impact. And that's really what we're trying to do, is hear where your needs are and see where we can help. And be another voice for the workforce programs, credit and non-credit, and help elevate the need. Sometimes it works. We didn't get any new money for equipment this year. But we have a list. From the colleges, we have a $6.5 million list of equipment needs. So it's on the CFO's radar, it's on the chancellor's radar, it's on all the president's radar. So we'll push it again this year. And those of you that know me, I really don't stop until I get a solid no, or a kick in the rear, I guess. So please use these meetings for that form. You have to be involved. And the colleges have to be involved, or this isn't going to work. This isn't somebody's out here digging up something and coming up with ideas and then handing it across the bridge. Someone's running across the bridge and handing it to somebody else. That's not how this is supposed to work.
Why don't you tell them where do these requests come from? How does that?
Everyone. Rebecca mentioned anyone, anytime. Now with 5,300 employees and 2 million citizens in our service area, that could get a little overwhelming. Here's the team, here's the primary person who does the labor market stuff and keeps track of all that. So it could get a little overwhelming. So we try once a year, requests will go out again at the end of the fall semester, and we'll be gathering information in February for programs that you're hearing about and want us to explore, and it comes through your president and vice president of instruction. So we're trying to funnel that through president and vice president of instruction, just so we can funnel it. And isn't it interesting how a lot of the new ideas now really are changing and updating what we already have. Our CIO keeps talking about convergence technology. And I said, kind of sounds like integrated technology, which we have an Associate of Applied Science degree and a certificate, maybe 2, that build up to it. Oh, no, this is something new. I said, let's just look at it. Just give us a chance and let us look at it. So we are looking at that, and we think it's a modification, don't know yet, we're not finished in the process, to integrated technologies. And maybe it's also some industry certification prep, maybe it's also something in continuing education, don't know yet. So bring us your ideas. Does anybody have a great idea that we haven't thought about? That we need to put out there right now, a program or an occupation that we're not serving?
Yes, we sure have come a long way in just a few years in this whole workforce effort. And I think that's a great credit to Linda Head and her team here that has provided remarkable leadership. I'm also going to say Rebecca Riley, who's been a fabulous coach here. I don't think there's any better vice president of instruction that you'll find anywhere around. And you think about to pull together this conglomerate of 6 separate colleges to where we have a smooth process, because while we collaborate, we also still compete somewhat. And there's still more issues that need to be resolved. We know in our own service area, our biggest employers are healthcare and school districts. Those are our largest employers. But we see that changing. We see that changing with what's happening out the Beltway, with the establishment of the 4,000-acre Generation Park, and FMC is their first major, signature tenant. We see that changing with what's happening north of us. So we know that we're going to be knocking on the door of EMI, energy management, and jobs are coming this way as well. And we're not sure, because we don't have good public transportation, that the students that we serve in the 600-mile radius between the Beltway all the way to Tarkington can get to University Park. So other issues that we know are coming will be, okay, we may not have a rig over on this side of town, but what piece of programming can be done here to give our students, our constituents, other options. So those are just some of the things that we know are coming down the pipe. One of the things also I wanted to mention that I didn't hear you talk about today, you may have in another format. Linda facilitates and puts on the Chancellor's Global Initiative luncheons, and those are held, I think, quarterly. And they're the second, third in command from big companies all over that attend that. And this is mostly a listening group. We listen to what their needs are, And Linda and her team are responsible for responding to what they hear. And so with so many of the big oil companies saying we desperately need workers, but so many of our constituents having no idea, well, what do you do if you're not, a mud driller, or if you're not an engineer? What's all those different job opportunities in between? I think the public knows what a nurse does, they have a concept of what a dental hygienist does, but they really don't know the breadth and the scope of jobs in that whole field. And so Linda, with the help of others within our system, have been putting together videos that actually define and describe what those job opportunities are. And those will be on the road. Those are good recruiting information tools for our public schools. And there are many in this room that are here that interface with our public schools on many different levels. So just kind of wanted to make those comments and say thank you to Linda and her team and Rebecca Riley and our workforce leaders that have played a significant role in getting us to where we are now.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie, for your leadership. Thank you, Deborah. It's fun. We're going to have fun. And thanks to our team. And thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca and I, actually about 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, Dr. Pearson sat Rebecca and I down next to each other at a chamber banquet because we really didn't know each other that well. We worked with each other, sat in meetings together and such, but we really didn't know each other. And it was one of the best things you ever did because we have great fun together, and I think we're a nice complement for each other. And thanks to all of you. Because you're really working hard every day for our students, and we appreciate you.